If you're developing something to help or assist someone and you apply that assistance to them and now they're cured, whatever you have is not really for them anymore. It's for those that still have the sickness. You see what I mean? So that means that if you at any point start taking on this idea that it's kind of like us versus them, you lose the point right away, because them is who you were going after in the first place. It wasn't us. So I want to make that very clear that generally, if you're applying anything like healing and power, it is for, you're this building that says hospital, and everybody that's coming to you is sick. And then you're going to administer to them this healing. And then once they are cured, you cannot take on the aspect like it's me and the cured versus the sick. Because that just defeats the purpose. So let me show you how that actually begins in the consciousness, though, as beings that operate that way. And I call them the destroyers. And how a destroyer is actually created. So this way, when you understand how a destroyer is created, you also see that, man, maybe you have even a little destroyer in you. Maybe this has actually happened to you at some stage in time. Maybe this is also definitely what you may be blaming these elites and controllers for being engaged in. But you got to also realize that that is indeed a vicious cycle. And until they start making this transition to eventually here, then it's going to be generations on top of generations of destroyers. So watch how it works. So now let's take that same context and let's say that I want to create something, right? But instead of me actually want to create something for everyone, I start taking on this, it's us versus them, right? And then at a certain point, I run out of, let's say, bringing more us in. So all is left is just them. I'm going to show you how, let's say, quote unquote, so-called Illuminati, so-called different families, mobs, etc. They work. They look out at the reality and they look out at it in disgust. They don't like it. It's always something like, think about all these religions and these traditions. Oh, it's the pagans. Those Catholics. So it's always us versus them that starts to get adapted. But it seems so innocent at first. It seems like even when it's just you're saying my family versus the rest of the world, it seems like it's so innocent because you could easily fall down these stairs by being hurt. The creation of destroyer has been hurt by others and has not forgiven them. You try to even jump out and help people. You get hurt a few times. And then all of a sudden, you can't seem to forgive anymore. You start even having flashbacks or PTSD when you meet somebody and you see them move a certain way that the other person used to move. And you're like, this is going to happen to me again. I just need to get what is for me from them, the thing I need from them, and move on. And so, of course, these controllers, they operate where they need lots of things from human beings. They need them to build stuff. They need them to give money to them at times. They need energy. They need their creativity. So they need things from humanity, but they don't like humanity because they've been hurt. And then they start to generalize or categorize who they're going to help. Then it starts to become this small category, mainly my close family or my friends. And then it's like my close family or my friends against the world. And in that context, what a destroyer then does is they will create things that they will not necessarily even try themselves. They will create things that are preying on others' weaknesses. See what I mean? It's like, so they'll, hey, go take these shots. The injections, make your booty bigger. Hey, go and you could make yourself more educated and learn more and be the head of society. Spend all this money on this degree. So they prey on the weaknesses because in their mindset, they don't care about anybody anyway. They're just looking to get that bottom line. And this happens, as I mentioned here. Now look at some of the details. They have categories of the ones they love, generally the close family and close friends. They adapt the toxic use versus the world, the toxic us, Let me correct that, versus the world mentality. So if you're looking in your mind for whenever it starts to make a switch into becoming a destroyer, these are the integers that you would start noticing are happening in your mind first before you would completely become a destroyer. You would start to adapt to the toxic, it's us versus them, the stupid ones, the ones that are doing this. You see what I mean? That's the segue into it. And now think about that just by itself. That's everywhere. So there's always a spring-loaded trap for a person to jump into this kind of thing. Creates things that exploit the weaknesses of others through their desires, right? And that's, again, to get their bottom line. Does not care about others, uses them to get ahead, right? Because it's like a small family, and it doesn't like everybody else, but it needs them so that it can build whatever it is that they're working on. May become very wealthy, will pass wealth and destruction to the child. This is an important part. That despite the whole thing, though, money cannot really go with you. It can stay here, though. So what they have done is they've set it up where, because the money stays here, they build up the company, the empire, etc., and then it's the children inherit it. But how the karma passes is the child actually inherits the curse of being a destroyer. You see, because when the child comes into the position, is now owns the framework or the corpus or the entity, the corporation, if you may, of the father or whoever, the mother that put it together, that was a destroyer. So they inherit the destruction. And in order for them to get out of that, what would they have to do? They would have to destroy the destroyer. You see what I mean? So it also gives you an idea of the kind of power within destroyers. That's why they're always destroying each other. It's just like something constantly crumbling on itself. And then the mass that arises after that becomes it, rinse, rewind, repeat, because it's a cyclic cycle. As I said, they can only feel artificially, and they're excited or sickly excited. And it's just because, like, when you're still betraying everything and everyone, you can go and have like this artificial excitement. Yeah. Like parties and, drinking a bunch and overexciting the senses, making them feel like you're excited. But in the morning, you'll feel like shit because it's artificial. Or one that then accepts the role of the destroyer completely actually becomes more of jaded, is the term. And in that way, they actually start to take some type of sick pleasure in what they're doing. And for sure, the controllers in the reality are actually more on that end now. So it started off with that. I like them. I don't like them. This is the religion you should worship. If you don't, you're not with us. Here's our God. Here's what we want you to do. Here's the language that you should speak. Oh, don't speak that language anymore. That's not the language that we like. Hey, set your table this way. If you do that, if you don't eat with forks, you're not civilized. So you see, there's a whole slew of lists here of all these triggers inside the mainframe. And this is why you'll know exactly what I'm saying is correct. So let's see also still the slippery slope of the destroyer. Does not have the same opportunity as others seem to have. In the mind of the destroyer, these are things that can trigger that destruction, because sometimes you can look at the society around you, look at other people and their success and all the looking out, and then come back with, I don't even have the same opportunity. So I'm going to have to grind. Do you know how many people I've run into in life that do bad things that say the reason why they do it is because if they didn't, somebody else would? Dope dealers always have that excuse. Y'all shot, if I don't sell dope, somebody else going to sell dope. Like that's ever excuse, but it's a very plausible, deniable process that goes on in the consciousness of a person who feels like they don't have the same opportunities as someone else. So they're willing to feel like, okay, well, society left me. Like, see where it all comes from, though. This is a natural process of thought. Society left us. They don't care about us. They're always exploiting us. So I'm going to become an exploiter. I'm going to become a destroyer. You see how easy that is to happen? Feels alone against the world. Now, not everybody has the same condition. Some did not have parents, right? Some did not have siblings. So it's just been them against everything else for as long as they can remember. And in that, they have become in a category by themselves, and it's them against the world. And they can run through a world in a very destructive way. feels the world has forgotten about them, has never experienced unconditional love from parents, siblings, and friends, was helping and got taken advantage of. A lot of our sisters, this happens to them. They just like, they get that first relationship, they're loving, they're caring, and then they meet the wolf. And then after that, even after that first time, it's like they got taken advantage of. So they put themselves into a protected state to not get taken advantage of again. And they do that in attempts to taking advantage of situations, moments, because now everything is closed. Again, and when that energy is closed, it can't heal. It can't assist. It can't give. So in that respect, it's going to do the opposite. It's just going to destroy. So even if somebody is vacuumed into all of your allure, then if they're not nourished in that allure, it's like you're draining the energy from them. Those are also destroyers. Wasn't successful in something and passed the blame, right? Because many have worked their entire lives on things and got all the way to that point, and somehow the cards didn't line up right, and they weren't successful in it just getting to the stage that what they wanted it to be, and then they get super bitter. They blame everybody else, and now, again, us versus them mentality, and so they kind of go in the world like crashing into things. Has succumbed to a mental deception, and that could be a whole slew of things, because inside of the mind has a plausible deniability where it will justify the things that it does. So what happens here is that now this highest state called the unconditional love, which I'll only explain for a second, you could see how it would be very difficult for a destroyer to go to unconditional love. So what I'm showing you here is that people think they have choices in life of whether to love or not, but my friends, there's no choice, because this path is doomed. I can show you a countless amount of souls buried in destruction. They become destroyers, so they are destroyed. So if you find yourself in this stage right here, this does make a very opportune stage, and you got to make sure you don't regress back to this because of what you think is going on around you. And as I said before, the segue into that always is that you start setting up categories.